Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Interesting Modelling Company. This is the midweek show, but we've kind of shunted it over a little bit onto a Thursday because we have a very special guest this evening. None other than a man we like to think of as Mike Reeves. It's Mike Reeves. Hello, Michael. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you and everybody else?
Well, I'm cold, and of course, I'm wrapped up for winter. This being May. You've got it so easy over there in Arizona, honestly.
Well, I can tell you this. I don't know the conversion, but I think we're in the right around 36 to 37 degrees Celsius today. It's 103 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah. Let's just say today I went for a walk by the seaside because I live by the seaside, and I've known warmer Februaries. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, us, the British, we always moan about the weather, So we're gonna have a chat tonight about some new stuff coming from Phase Hanger, and then we'll get into the freeform part of the show, the old freeform jazz improvisational part of the show. So you've got some new goodies coming up, being worked on at the moment for the Hobby Boss 1/48 scale A10, haven't you?
I do indeed, amongst other things. But right now, that's kind of the lead focus. I'm sorry about the quality of the pics, guys. These were
They're fine.
iPhone taken about an hour ago. So, yeah, we're doing a 1/48 scale cockpit, which you can see here. These are all 3D printed masters, but done by my very dear friend Rich Van Zandt. He was kind enough to share these with me. He's building one on his own, and he's designing the sets, and it's just he's been very generous with the process. So the cockpit itself will be a combination of 3D and resin parts. For instance, like in this photo, the back deck and the instrument combing and instrument panel are going to be 3D printed, and that's how you will get them. And then the tub itself will be cast in resin. And sorry, I didn't line it up very well on the deck. You can see the little gap where it's supposed to meet.
No, it's fine.
That's just a little blue tack holding that on. So I'm really excited about how the detail and the overall look. And the throttles are not in here, but they will be in the set. So it's an A10C, which is not available in 48 scale. And as you'll see moving forward through the conversation, there's much more to come to make it an A10C that we're doing. So
I take it the 3D. The reason why you're including the actual 3D printed parts is because you simply can't mold from the 3D printed parts.
Yeah, they can, but I mean
you'd be chewing through a lot of rubber. Let's put it that way.
Exactly. And for me, the cost versus the time consuming and sometimes very frustrating process. I mean, that instrument panel, in fact, I was gonna do it with the combing all in resin, but trying to get that gear handle, for instance, and some of those knobs and switches that are on the panel, that's just short shots waiting to happen. And I'm very prideful in what I do. And it was just, I talked to Rich about it. This will also come, which is not pictured, with a 3D printed interior canopy framing all the way down, as well as the windscreen, a 3D printed HUD, and like I said, the throttles as well. The seats are also coming for it. There's going to be the sheepskin and the standard cushions, both with and without belts, but they will not be in the cockpit sets because it's just it's easier for me to just sell a seat and then a cockpit, and you can pick the seat you want, rather than trying to double up on, making 200 cockpit sets with sheepskin and 200 cockpit sets with regular. So those they're actually done too. There's no photos of them right now. And sorry for the terrible primer job too. That was also done in haste earlier
it's
today.
Fine, Mike. Honestly, you should see some of the pictures that come out from some companies out there, and you think, really? Could you not have actually folded that piece of paper rather than having one piece and then a right angle and another piece, and they're two different pieces of colored paper, right? And it's like, really? But you see, the A-10 is one of those airplanes. I've always had a passing interest in it, because I kind of grew up, reading about it, at school, because it was then an airplane coming through. It was this aircraft that could destroy tanks with a gun,
right? And
it's always been on the peripheries for me. I don't think I've never actually built an A-10.
Me neither.
But I have to say, looking at these pictures and knowing that some of the schemes that the A-10C carries, it's an itch that is starting to be needed to be scratched, I think is the best way of putting it. I mean, these are, how can I put this? This is a compliment in the best way, is that the level of detail in some of these molded cockpit parts now is approaching figure painting standards of skill.
Yeah,
because in order to get the best, like that, for example, in order to get the best out of that, you are almost going to have to be employing the finesse with a paintbrush that figure painters employ. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's fabulous. I mean, I'm sure everybody looking at this, it's levels of detail that, we never would have thought would have been possible. And, and it's quite frightening to think that if this is what we can do with the technology in 2021, what a 3D printer is going to be like in 2031.
Well, and think about this, that instrument panel is less than an inch wide. And and before anybody asks, no, it does not come with instrument decals. I do recommend things like NEZ or some of the stock printed decals, and just use your,
people like that.
Grab your. We have Waldron punch and die sets. I think you guys have something else very similar. It's really the easiest way to do it anyway. And maybe Quinta will grab a hold of one of my sets and see what they can do with it. So, yeah, we're really excited. I mean, this is going to be a full-on, no kidding conversion. That's part of the wingtips. So that's the set that's going to have, and it will include that tail cone as well. Both sets of wingtips will. This is the one with the open flare buckets. I still have to clean up a little bit of the print lines on these masters before I get them out there, which, I mean, is just part of the process. And this is the one without with the covered flare buckets, so they'll be offered both ways. So we're I'm excited about that too, because it's the detail that Rich has incorporated on this is really, it's groundbreaking. And certainly, like I said, I am quite honored that Rich is sharing some of his work with me and allowing me to get it out to the world for him. So, in fact, at the IPMS Nationals coming up in Vegas this year, our tables are right next to each other. So it's going to be kind of fun that we can, if people have questions, because chances are I'm not going to be able to build an A-10 by then. I can't even finish a Tamiya F-117 in 48 scale right now, which is basically 15 parts.
And one color.
Right. And but I will have a lot of this stuff on our stand on like standalone kind of little things.
And this is the tail cone we're looking at as well, isn't it? I mean,
it is.
pretty special looking, that is.
And that one's got a wash on it. That's why, and that's an actual resin part, just with a black sloppy wash that I threw on the other day, just to see if I could get the detail to pop. And I could have probably cleaned it a little bit more, but you get the idea.
Oh yeah, I get the idea. And we've got engine fans here.
Yes. And again, terrible photo if that's out of focus. So these have, you can't see them. Maybe you can a little bit inside the cowl ring. You can see them on the one on the right. There's the striations in there, which are actually in the real A10 cowl. They're little tiny bleed vents that go through, and the fan itself is 3D printed and it's see-through, just like the real thing, because it's a bypass engine. So that's going to make it pretty special. That's a terrible paint job, but again, done in haste. So sorry, guys.
No, that's fine. It's. I mean, this is one of the things I always kind of I fear with kits that have engine fronts like this, and I'm looking at you, Eshy S3 Viking. Yep. Where you end up with that a seam line through the intake, and it's like no.
Which, by the way, might be in work.
Excellent.
And the nice thing about our fans, if you really can't go back and tell, but the shock cone, the fan itself, and the cowling are all separate parts. Mm-hmm. So you can paint that cone, you can paint the fan, and you can paint the outside and inside cowl all separately, and then assemble them. They all have little keys in them to make them line up. So very happy about the look of that, and it's the correct depth. Unlike the Hobby Boss kit, which they come about 40% higher up into the cowl. That is a part of the exhaust. In fact, that is the exhaust with the cone. So that will be resin cast from a 3D print, and then the cone itself has it's 3D printed, and it's going to have all the additional rivet detail, and it locks in. If you look at the very top where that fairing is, there's a little lug at the top of that. That exhaust cone will right there. That exhaust cone will lock right onto that and give you perfect alignment. So. We're just so excited. I've got a bunch of other stuff coming, thanks to Rich for the A10. We got the full antenna suite, weapons pylons, wheels, and I think we're doing some APU, 3D printed APU stuff. So it's going to be a full, complete A10 conversion. And it will eventually be scaled up to 32nd scale for the Trumper kit. But we're doing kind of one thing at a time, and try not to kill me in the process of trying to cast and get this stuff together. That's not even glued on. That's just stuck on there and leaning over. So sorry about the dogs.
That's all right.
Those I can't help. They have big mouths.
They will be joining us as co-hosts at some stage. That's part of the that's part of the exhaust, which you see sometimes poking out the back end of the engine intakes, isn't it?
Yeah, you won't see much of that,
right?
Because it's pretty deep into the cone.
Oh yes,
just the very end of it will stick out a little bit, even with the back of the cowl. So a little cleanup needs to be done on these too, just with most 3D printed stuff. But it's pretty simple. So we'll get that all fixed up too.
And what roughly are you looking at in terms of release dates for this, Mike?
Right now, the first things that are going to come out is the cockpit and the intakes. And right now, looking back at stock level, I think I've got about 30 of the The intake set's done. I'm probably about 15 or 16 right now of the cockpit sets. Just because of being a one guy show, if you will, with my company, what I'll probably do, because I've recently made some big changes in the way I do business, because I've got orders out there that are embarrassingly long waited for customers. I'm doing live inventory now. So once I release these, I'll probably start with a 50 set release, and once those are gone, they won't be available again until I rebuild stock, but they will continue to be available. So, and that's why we're trying to piecemeal some of this stuff. I mean, the pylons, I think there's 12 or 13 pylons on an A10.
Yes, it's a busy old aeroplane.
Yeah. So that's going to be very time consuming coming, forward to get stock built up. So I should have, the goal right now is to have at least 4, maybe 5 of the A10 sets available in the next 30 days. And once they're sold out, I will have the mad dash to cast a bunch more for the Nationals in August. So,
well, people can go and find you over at www.phasehangerresin.com, where they can see your entire range. I like stickers and swag. That sounds interesting. Might have a look at that later on. But
well, I only have stickers right now.
Oh, you only have stickers, no swag. Okay, fair enough. But yeah, www.phasehangerresin.com. We'll put a link up on the Interesting Modeling Company page as well. That's the same, Mike. I've always had like a fringe interest in the A10, but when you start seeing these goodies pile up, you think, might if that window of opportunity comes along, I might just plump, actually start building one. But
maybe I'll just send you some sets.
Oh, that's the catalyst, isn't it? That is the catalyst. Yeah, well, absolutely.
And some people are going to ask me, are you going to do a super set? No way.
No, it's things like this. It's pick and mix for people.
Yep.
They'll buy as much as they need rather than doing, shoving everything into one big box. Obviously you have to charge a premium price for it. People go, nah.
Yeah, exactly. And just trying to package something like that would be a mess with all the different parts and the instructions that would have to be included. So yeah, we're going to do them all as separate items. I've got all my part numbers and everything on my website right now. I haven't put them to the public yet. But there's a lot more coming, just more than A10 stuff. I mean, I've got wheels, 2 different types of wheels for the F-15 Eagle coming in 48 scale and 32nd scale soon. I've got 32nd scale Super Hornet and 72nd scale Super Hornet pylons coming. Some 35th scale helicopter stuff, which we can talk about at some other
we'll talk about another time. Yeah.
But it's really exciting times. But man, oh man, there's a lot of rubber and resin that's having to be flung to make this happen. You start to appreciate this especially when you work for yourself. I've come to the conclusion that every time kind of like it's time to start work again on a Monday morning, I've come to the conclusion that Monday through to Friday is not enough. I need like 12 days during the working week. Oh, absolutely.
I know it's been hard on people the last year or so because everything time seems to have dragged and everything seems to kind of like February seems to have lasted forever. But especially in my situation where I'm working to pretty much almost fortnightly deadlines, time it goes very, very, very quickly.
I can't believe it's Thursday.
Is it Thursday?
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord!
It's Friday in New Zealand.
But they live in the future. These strange Kiwi folk in they live in this mysterious kind of, they're living in 2027 at the moment. It's bizarre. There we go. It was Roger Watson who asked what's the name of Mike's company. There you go. We always say www, but hafezhangerresin.com. So head on over there and have a look, see what grabs your fancy. We're going to say a big hello to everybody who's tuned in tonight. I'm going to say a deep breath and a mug of tea.
Here we go.
I'm going to say hello to Dave Swindle, John Patrick, Huston, Stuart Bremer, Ian Goldstraw, Philip Jones, Yohav Efreti, Michael Scott, Dougal McWoogle, Lee Souter, Douglas Hunter, Mike Williams, Ofer Cohen, Andy King, Greg Woodbridge, Johan Olivier, the actor, Pavel Krupovitz, Brian Wilson, Joe Pestu.
I'm just going to let you struggle with it.
Pestalozzi. I'm sorry if I've mangled your name there, Joe. You should see me do the ghost stories. It's even worse. Rob Monfee. Rob, I hope you're well and staying away from the NHS at the moment, please. Paul Milligan, Andy Brennan, blah, 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 Roger Watson, Chris Alliung, Steve Moores, Andy King. Hello, everybody joining us tonight for our Thursday show. The reason why it was a Thursday this week is because Mike was not available on the Wednesday, but we will. That's all right. We will hopefully be returning to a Wednesday format. And also, I was so busy today, I forgot to do a poster. I apologise. I'm working on things, and today it's like I say, I had a couple of hours off. Then I was doing research, then I was doing drawing, and then I was, and it's just, and then suddenly it's like, oh, God, it's time to do a show. So
I know the feeling.
In between the bouts of hypothermia, obviously. It's interesting that we've been talking about this before the show, but we'll jazz riff on this now, and that is, I was just saying to you beforehand that I've managed this week to parcel off literally some kits to people that were on my radar as future projects, but I've kind of moved them on because other people. Other people can build them much better than I can, so may as well let them do it. And it suddenly opens up my kind of possibilities of doing things here at the moment. I'm working on that Tamiya biker figure. I've still got some small scale armor stuff to build, but at the moment it's got to the stage where, as I said to you before the show, over the last few weeks or so, I've built so much small scale armor. I've enjoyed it, I really have. And I will enjoy building some more in the next few weeks. But at this moment in time, I need to do something completely different.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, we've covered the commitments in terms of things that needed to be built. I just, even if it's 1/35th scale, it's nothing to do with the kits. The kits were brilliant. I enjoyed building them, but there is definitely it's going to sound a bit weird. There's definitely kind of like a muscle memory that you get from building too much of the same thing in a short space of time, is that your techniques, your approach, the mechanics of building everything suddenly becomes very, very similar, which is going to sound strange because people are going to go, well, hang about, all it is you're cutting that off, you're gluing that, you're priming that, you're painting that, you're decaling it. Surely a model is a model is a model, but they truly aren't.
And I think what you're really saying is it becomes mundane, and then you lose you kind of lose your creativity for other things because it literally becomes, like you say, muscle memory. I can build this with my eyes closed.
I wouldn't say mundane kind of implies mundane kind of implies almost a kind of a slightly kind of laissez-faire attitude. I'm not saying it in a negative sense. I think what it is that old phrase, familiarity breeds contempt, is right. Because you are doing so much of the same thing again and again and again. It's kind of like it's the same thing, just it's ice cream, it's just different flavors.
It's Groundhog Day every day.
And it's kind of like just fancy something a bit different now.
Yeah.
Just, it's one of those things that it could just be one project, and I'm like, I go straight back in, bang out another 72nd scale armor kit, and I'm looking forward to building the ones I've got here. But like I say, at the moment, I need to do something a bit different.
Don't you have a tornado that needs to be finished?
No. I built that old Italy.
Did you finish it?
Yeah, it's finished. Yeah, that's all done.
I must have missed it. I'm sorry.
No, I'll go and find it. Actually, whilst we're talking, I will go and fill in for me, Mike. I'm just going to go. I'm just going on to Facebook to find some pictures of it. What are you building at the moment, Michael?
Well, I can show you one that's right here.
Even better.
Sadly, it's not for me. I got this little friend of mine that doesn't build models asked me to build a gift he got for Christmas.
Right.
So it's the Bandai ATST.
Oh,
I'm doing like whoops, I'm going the wrong way. A little scene. Still working a little bit on the weathering and getting it and then I'll get it attached to the base and send it to him. Nothing extravagant, but it's been fun because I love the Bandai Star Wars kits. And I've got like I said, a Tamiya F-117 that I can't seem to get finished. And it's ready for paint. But like you said, when you need 12 days in a week just to do your job, it becomes a little, it gets to the point where I really want to hit the bench, but I'm kind of sick of looking at this stuff tonight. And, and that's the danger when you turn your job or your hobby into your job. And I promised myself I wouldn't do that. So now I've dedicated at least 2 to 3 hours a week, not a whole lot, but at least 2 to 3 hours a week and in some cases, forcing myself to just sit down and glue some parts or cut something off the sprue to make me feel better. I also have, I think I've shown you before, that 48 scale Norwegian F-16 that is painted, but now I need to weather and put decals, and then the worst part of a build for me, painting landing gear and putting it in.
It's sometimes it can just be, you've kind of like, it's a bit like running a marathon. You've done the 25 miles. It's that final couple of laps around the stadium.
Yep.
That it's just like, it just feels like a bit of a slog. I know the feeling, and it's. I often wonder about this, and I think, do you know what's the one bit of a project that I actually enjoy? And by and large, I usually get ahead of steam when it's the actual construction side of things. It's once we actually have to start putting paint on bits and pieces, that's when I suddenly start to feel that kind of like, which is strange, because now it used to be the stage that I really look forward to. It's like, we're going to get to painting now, we're going to get to airbrushing, we're going to get to decaling. These days, I just, whether or not it's because, at least with construction, there is a certain element of surety to what you're doing. It's kind of like you glue this bit into this bit. By and large, these days, it's there's not going to be any surprises. You see,
right?
As soon as it gets to the finishing, suddenly that's when they've literally taken the stabilizers off the bicycle, and you are having to pedal by yourself. At this point onwards, it's not down to the kit; it's down to you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the bit where I suddenly go, "Oh no, don't like this bit." Don't like this. I'm wobbling all over the place.
My big hang up, and it's funny because to me, construction, like you say, the one thing that you have is control.
Yes, exactly.
You have control over, what? Do I want to take care of that seam? Do I want to take care of that mold line? Is it going to be visible? That's easy. You can kind of work that out as you go.
Even if you're sorting out minor fit problems,
right,
it's still part, you are still in control of it.
Yep. But then you run into that situation, like you say, with paint, in many cases, This guy's in control.
Oh, that guy. Oh,
This guy,
oh.
which we all know and love. However, sometimes he works great, or she, however it identifies. And sometimes you might have a slightly wrong mix in the paint, and you either get you get a finish that you hate, or it's not covering, or maybe it just never dries. It's very difficult. For me, my biggest hang up, I do love the painting. My biggest hang up is the weathering.
Well, that's the bit I love. That's the bit. That's the bit I love. Although, because I have started these days like a sponge, I absorb so much information from other modelers and watch what other modelers do, and I see things that they effects that they get, and I think, oh, it's brilliant. You know, I need to incorporate that into my finishing technique. It's very good learning new skills and unlearning old skills.
Right.
But there are certain points in projects where I suddenly sit here and I think, where am I? What am I doing on this again? What, you know, what stage am I? Back in the oldie days, it would be I paint it, I put on a wash, I dry brush it, model finished.
Yeah,
you know, it's that simple. It's that simple, you see. Whereas these days, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, am I doing the chipping next, or am I actually picking out these details? Do I do the wash now, or do I get the kind of like the dust effects on, then put the wash over that because it will pop the detail more? And I you know, I'll walk away from a project, come back, and I'm sat here for at least, you know, half an hour, kind of picking at it, thinking I've forgotten what I'm doing. You know,
right? Well, and I think that actually comes down my buddy Gabe Pincelli, who also does masters for Phase Hanger. That's here right now in Phoenix. We had kind of that same conversation yesterday while we're driving around from the couple hobby shops we have, and I told him my weathering fear, and I go, here's my problem, and I think I'm in some ways very similar to the way Spencer is. Spencer doesn't like to experiment.
No.
Looking at the shelf behind you, you like to experiment. And you've mentioned that. You will try products all day long. I go, my issue is, I mean, the gamut, the sheer gamut right here at my side of weathering products that are available right now is beyond mind-blowing.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, Mike, sometimes I almost wish, as much as I've often kind of like, you know, back in the kind of like, you know, ye oldie days, that I think, wouldn't it be great to have like a fully equipped workshop with every single paint and product that you could ever wish for, as a kind of show of bourgeois opulence, you see.
Look at me.
Look at me. Look at you know, look at this. It's to some extent.
Got one model finished in the case.
Yeah, to some extent, I almost sometimes think to myself, would I be happier if I was sat here with only one model in my life, right? Nothing else up in the attic that I could go and grab. The only model I've got is the one actually in front of me at that time. Yep. There's nothing else to get distracted with. That's it. And all I've got to weather it with is a couple of tubes of oil paint and some paint brushes.
Oils.
Yeah, and that's it. And I do think to myself, you know what? Perhaps, you know, not if I use the phrase "trapped by success," I don't mean it in a kind of like a, you know, in a conceited way, but beware what you wish for, because being able to now think, this is great, you know, I've got all this stuff and I've got all these paints, and I, you know, and it's like, you know, there's a sense of achievement in suddenly thinking I've now got that kind of adult workshop that I always dreamt of having as a kid. There can be such a thing as too much of a good thing. You know, it's overwhelming.
when you said earlier about, okay, do I do the chipping and then the dust or vice versa? And you do a lot of armor, so it's a little bit different than what me as an aircraft modeler does. I don't. My fear on every one, and the one reason I pretty much stick with oil paints now is I know how they're going to work with Turpenoid or whatever. You know, the problem that I have with this stuff, what paint did I paint this in? What's my clear coat? What wash can I use on this particular clear coat that's not going to damage it or stick so hard that I can't wipe it off? And it almost becomes a game of confusion for me, where I'm like, I don't know if this is compatible. And like Steve Moore says, there's too much risk experimenting on a 90% completed model. Yeah, I agree with that, Steve. And by the way, finish that Mirage 2000 from your comment above. I want to see it. One of my favorite airplanes. It bogs me down to the point where I'm terrified. Like I get the shakes before I get the washout. And I'm like, here we go. $900 kit with all the aftermarket on it. Hope this works. I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
In that moment, I'd had this recently happen on a Mirage 3 from Edward, the old school 48 scale one, where I used the wrong wash, and it literally stripped the paint. And it was my fault. I mean, I should have realized, well, you can't use the enamel with this kind of wash or vice versa. But there needs to be like a universal chart of what you can use with what. And, now with all the different the paints themselves too, many of them act similarly. Tamiya, Gunzy, Mr. Color, the AK, and a couple others, Mr. Paint. They all have kind of that similar acrylic lacquer in them. But then you go, okay, well, what does my clear coat have that I'm going to put a wash on? And it just, I don't know. I get terrified.
Should I tell you something? I discovered this a couple of years ago, bizarrely, and that was I used Mr. Color. It was one of the GX clear coats, gloss coats for the decals. Yeah, I know, controversial. Just end it there. And I was using Mr. Color decal solvents. The Mark Softer and the Mark Setter.
Yep.
Do you know what happened? They actually marked the clear coat. They left like what can best be described as almost like a bleach stain in them.
Yeah. Well, they do call it Mark Soft.
Yeah. But this is the thing. These were products from the same company.
Right.
And it's like, what on earth is in that Mr. Mark? What is in that Mark Soft and Mark Setter that can actually bite into essentially a hard lacquer gloss finish? And that was an eye-opener. It was solved by putting another gloss coat over it, which to some extent softens it off again. But that was rather surprising. Joe, I'm gonna have a run up at this. It's either Joe Pestaglici or Joe Pestaglici. Apologies either way. Joe says not bad. It's Irish. I got family in Cork, mate. I should know this. It's anyway. We have Christopher John Buchholz says that's why I use watercolor paint and dish soap. Mild, never attacks the clear coat. Plus, it makes the model smell nice.
That smells like a Roy Sutherland recipe, Chris.
Yeah, it's a Roy Sutherland recipe. It's Steve Moores says the Flory clay washes are compatible with all pain. I feel your pain. I feel your pain, Chris. I kind of this is why this stuff I wanted to give this stuff a try before going out and buying any more of it. I don't know if you saw this on Sunday, Mike. This is Mr. Weathering Paste, which for some reason, I kept calling it Mr. Texturing Paste, which shows how much attention I was paying to the ball game. And yeah, it's interesting, but I won't be using it for textures. I'll tell you what I am going to be experimenting with, and that is, I don't know if you probably got these in America, wire wool soap cleaners. So essentially, they're just like a wad of wire wool with like dried soap in them. You can use them for cleaning pots and pans, getting the old, but yeah, those kind of things. The thing is, after a while, they start shrinking down, you see, and then eventually you end up with this tiny little ball of metal that then disintegrates into dust, into rusty dust. And you get that rusty dust and you put it into a nice little container, and you've got actual rust. Actual rust, you see. I'm going to try mixing that with some enamel thinner to see whether that actually gives me a really good rust wash now, for rust spots on exhaust and things. It's real rust, Mike. It's got to work. But
well, and if it doesn't, do it on a cheap 70-second scale armor kit.
Yeah. Steve says, there you go, Brillo pad. I am always trying out new ideas for things like rust effects, because my big hero Martin Kovac, he's doing the same. He nails a way of doing rusty exhaust, then he tweaks it and he changes it a bit. And Martin at the moment is going on this crusade of kind of trying to simplify and strip back his techniques to get the same effects, but in a much more linear fashion, without time consuming spending hours and hours doing something when actually you could do the same effect in 5-10 minutes. So this is the thing, and I've said this to Spencer before, this is the thing that I find really quite energizing about this hobby. After I've been building models now for, when did I start? I'm probably about 5 years old, so blimey, it's nearly 50 years. That's just oh lordy, nearly 50 years I've been making models now.
I'm right behind you.
And I still find the fact that there are still people coming up with new ideas and new techniques and new things. I find it utterly brilliant. I truly do. I truly do.
I would go as far as to say people that have stripped back the way they do things. Like you mentioned Martin Kovac, and I really got to watch one of his shows. My very good friend John Chung, who's also done all my Tomcat stuff. My can I say this? I have a studio guy too.
Yeah.
My 48 scale FCK1 nozzles that he did are amazing. But what he's doing on that monogram space shuttle. And I'll tell you this, I've watched him work. He's shown me some videos of, he doesn't use a lot of aftermarket at all.
No.
He still uses a pin vise to scribe. Most of his detail involves stretch sprue. I've never seen anybody stretch sprue like this guy.
Yeah, I tell you what, I was looking at it was just one of the thrust nozzles that go underneath the windscreen on the shuttle.
Yeah, and the nose.
You've got those three little nozzles on there, and just everything that he did on that one little panel of scribing. And I looked at that and I thought, yeah, do you know what? Actually, rescribing a 70-second scale aircraft is a piece of cake compared to that. That to me is about a dozen modeling projects worth of scribing in one panel like that. I mean, I've been following that shuttle build that he's doing, and it's brilliant. And it also makes me realize that if I would really love to build a full stack 70-second scale shuttle. I really would. But I tell you what, it literally would just be straight from the box, because I do not have the skill, the patience, or the ability to do what John is doing. That is just extraordinary modeling.
Well, and he reached out to me because everybody knows his connection with me and Facehanger. He's like, are you getting people asking for my shuttle parts? I said, I've had a few people ping me and ask if I'm going to be doing them. And I go, John, I don't want them. period.
Mm.
And I go, don't take that as an insult. But I know this is your opus. He told me that. This is your opus. And if you see the comments that I made on his posts on ARC, where people were asking, are you going to send them to Mike at PHR and blah, blah, blah. I said, I don't want them, John. I want to sit back and enjoy the journey.
Mm. Mm.
And I go, and this is your opus. You should sit back and enjoy the journey too. I don't want you to make parts to sell. I want you to do things for you. And I go, besides, what am I going to get out of it? You're doing everything that you can't even incorporate as a piece of resin on a kit.
Yeah.
And I go, I want to watch this build for the next year or how long it takes you to finish, and just have fun with it, man. And I think he appreciated that beyond words. He told me, he's like, it's so nice to know that you're not asking me for parts. And I go, I'd never ask you for it. I never ask anybody for parts.
There is sometimes just that sheer joy of seeing other people build things that you'd like to build, but then you see somebody else building it, and you just sit back and you admire, you admire the ride. I mean, for example, there's I'm just looking here, Jarek Rydniski, who's building the Italeri Alfa Romeo 2300 Roadster. This is the Italeri 1/12 scale kit. It's one of their new kits. I mean, to be honest with you, it's one of those things that if one popped up on the doorstep tomorrow and can you build this, I'd be like, yeah, fine, I'll build it. I'd build it, but it'd be straight from the box. I wouldn't be doing what Jarek is doing. What Jarek is doing, again, like John's space shuttle, is utterly extraordinary. And it's you sometimes you can go along for the ride and enjoy it and admire it, and realize that your own skills are nowhere in the same ballpark, but you can just kind of enjoy what you're doing, but still sit back and think, these guys are brilliant, aren't they?
And I look at John. I don't think he's 30 years old yet.
Oh, don't. It's the same with Martin. He's late 20s.
He's a kid that has
half my age. Hate him.
Oh, me too. He has this talent that I have not seen.
But don't you remember, this is the generation of people who apparently weren't coming through because the hobby was going to be dying every 5 or 6 years, especially in this country. There'd be the editorials in the model magazines about how the hobby was dying, and then 5 years later, it's literally it's like a ham actor, kind of like, I'm dying, and 10 minutes later they're still there. Yeah, exactly.
I'm almost gone. It's coming.
An hour later, and another thing, and it's like, well, if this is a hobby that's dying, it's taking its long time about dying, isn't it? Everything that's going to come along is going to kill the hobby. Computer games, VCRs, and yet, we're in a situation now where, and this is like the bizarre dichotomy about our hobby at the moment, is you could say that in terms of the volume of modelers has actually kind of contracted. You see, so years ago, model companies would be selling, I remember it was something like Frog every year. They'd sell something like about 30,000 copies of their 109. You see, it was ridiculous numbers, and that was just one kit. They huge, vast, massive numbers. The actual number of modelers out there has contracted down to where it is now. The number of kit companies. There has never been this amount of kit companies in the history of this hobby in one given year. Is that we lose some, as time progresses, we lose some. But you look now at how many kit companies out there are, and we're talking about mainstream kits, what we used to, always used to be referred to in this country. You'd refer to it, somebody would come out with the kit and you say, well, it's very good, but it's not quite AFIC standards, and probably the same in America. They'd say this, it's very good, but it's not quite Revell standards, it's not quite Monogram standards. Yeah. You now have all these kit companies that are doing mainstream injection molded kits. And there are so many of them. I kind of like, go in the office of a morning, fire up Facebook, and it's like, oh, another one.
Well, and I think that the conversation is now people see that it's not dying. So the new topic is it's too expensive.
It's not.
But it's not expensive when you look at what you get out of a kit and the amount of time that you sit at your workbench and enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
And yeah, have I thrown away a $125 kit? Guilty. Absolutely guilty, because I screwed it up and I didn't want to fix it. Mm-hmm. That was money down the drain. But up to the point where I screwed it up, I was getting more than my money's worth out of it. And
I would actually say that sometimes the investment of money isn't even about the end result.
Yeah.
It's actually I hate to sound pretentious, but it's the journey.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same word.
You might not have ended up with the model that you financially invested in, but you might end up with more skills.
Absolutely.
And that's something you can't. Yeah, that's something you can't go into Andy's Hobby HQ down the road from you and say, Mr. Klein, can I have $25 worth of skill, please?
Right.
Like, nope.
Well, and funnily enough, speaking to Andy yesterday, and his YouTube channel is really successful.
Yeah.
And he gets a lot of negative comments from people, but he flat out said, guys, I'm not building these to be accurate, to stress accuracy. And I'm not correcting these kits. These kits are being sent to me from Tamiya and, God knows who that he gets them from. He goes, I'm building them the way they came in the box to show you what comes in the box. Am I perfect at weathering? Am I perfect at painting? Yeah. No. He goes, but that's not what I'm setting out to do. I'm showing you something I'm not just opening the box and showing you sprues. I'm building it in front of you. Yeah. And I give him a lot of credit for that. And his models actually, when you're kind of close, they're actually not bad at all. He's a good modeler.
I enjoy his channel. I enjoy his channel. I enjoy his shows because he has enthusiasm. You see, yeah. And there are YouTube channels out there where frankly, you're just kind of like, oh, watch this one. You're 20 seconds in. That's it. You're gone.
Or it's the guy just complaining from the moment he starts it.
Exactly, which is why Martin's Night Shift Modeler is just the best channel out there. He is lightning in a bottle, that guy. He is a phenomenally talented modeler, a ridiculously talented modeler. He also he's a very skilled filmmaker. The time that he takes to do the shows, to do the footage, edit it down, all the edits and everything and whatever. But also, he has the most dry and wicked sense of humor, and that is translating through into his second tongue.
Now, when is his show? What night?
It's usually a new show every Friday.
Okay.
But it's brilliant. But Andy's shows, yeah. And Andy isn't setting out to show you how to build the best model. He's not showing you how to correct it and whatever. He is literally just doing. I don't want to say just, because that sounds like I'm diminishing it. He is doing a presentation on what you can expect to find in the box, and that's it. I mean,
tutorial.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tutorial, and this comes back to this thing I noticed this week where somebody had gone onto one of the Facebook pages and they were working on something, and somebody just came in and went, yeah, no, I don't like what you've done, right? And I made the comment, his model, his rules. Yeah. You see, to quote
his house is where it's at.
Yeah, to quote
not yours.
To quote the late great Richard Feynman, the physicist Richard Feynman. Somebody once said to him, he was talking about something, and they said to him, "What do you care what other people think?" And that actually became the title of one of his books. What do you care what other people think? And it is this kind of like, you're building something. And I think this is actually, it's a dual thing these days. That might actually be another topic for another time. But before all this came about, and we were, we were sharing our work, daily, which is fantastic. It's utterly brilliant. We were building for ourselves, and the only people who were ever going to see our models were us. You see, I noticed this the other day. Was that I was doing some stuff, and I looked at it. I thought, yeah, right, that's good. We'll take a photograph of it now. Take a photograph now. I see it on the screen, and I think, oh goodness me, it looks terrible. That looks absolutely shocking. Then I look at it in person again, and I think, but it looks fine. And I'm like, who am I building for here? What am I building a model that looks good with these, or am I building a model that looks good with this devil here? And suddenly you're building to who are you building for?
Right.
And I think that's a big metaphysical question we need to have for another show, because unfortunately and
I know we're running low on time. I'll leave it with this. One thing that I appreciate about UK shows is the contest isn't the main focus. I love that from day one. Having been to Yeovilton, in fact, I met you at Yeovilton. Mm-hmm. It was the most relaxing, fun day I've had at a model show. Here in the States, it's all about the contest. And a lot of people legitimize their building by a plaque, a medal, a ribbon, you name it. When I enter a contest, which is very rare, usually I just help. I enter to help their count of models. My biggest satisfaction is watching one person take a picture of my model. Mm-hmm. That's all I care about. I don't need a $10 plaque to legitimize my build, because I don't care. Again,
do you know what? Controversial thing. Do you know what? If I had my way, I wouldn't have model competitions.
I agree.
The numbers are going down here immediately. Some of the most negative experiences I have had at model shows have actually been, ironically, when I was actually judging. You see, we'll overshoot for about 5-10 minutes. We're fine. I've probably told these stories before, and I'll tell them again because they were just bizarre. The one was at a show where a guy he got a second prize, and they called up his name and they said, and gave him his certificate or whatever. He stormed off stage, tore it up, threw it on the floor. And I thought, yes, there's something going on there that's more than modeling, right? The other one was I was judging at a show. I'm probably the best person and the worst person to ask to judge at a model show, because I go in there with a kind of like a really kind of not flippant, but just I look at things in a completely different way. You see, there are other people looking at things and they're doing this. I just look at something and I think, well, that looks good. I like the look of that one. Next, you see. Anyway, I was there, and I was looking at a model, and this guy was with me, and he's literally leaning over my shoulder. A strange concept these days, and he's going the wing flaps there have been scratch built, and that's been thing, and I'm like, okay, right, and he's going, and the undercarriage doors have all been scratch built and things, and I'm like, right, okay, cool. And he's going, and all the panel lines have been rescribed, and this, that, and the other, and I suddenly. I'm like, yeah, okay, and I kind of turned around to him. I said, "What classes are you judging?" And he went, "Oh no, I'm not a judge. I built that model." And I'm like,
"Thanks.
We're now judging, right? Why are you in the room? Why are you in
Goodbye.
the room? Why are you in the room? And I'm like, right, you are going to have to leave because we're judging now, right? Yeah. Well, I also replaced all the stuff here with yeah. Can you?
Shove
Out you
off.
go. Out you go. It was bizarre. It was bizarre, and the sad thing was, it really wasn't the best model in that class.
Right.
So it didn't win. You see.
Mad.
But I've been at model shows where I've seen so much kind of rancor and negativity and bitterness, which is why I never enter the model ever again. No, but you know what I mean. It's kind of like, and I just think, is this healthy?
Oh, yeah.
Really healthy?
So I'll do two real quick kind of things.
Yeah, go for it, Mike.
I know you're short on time.
No, we're fine. We can shoot over
Chris
for a bit.
Buchholz I know he can verify one, not necessarily the second one, but the one, because I don't take it seriously, and I was judging at the IPMS national level, and I have since stopped judging for about 15 years. But I was at a nationals. I can't remember where. And we finished judging, and then we started doing the best aircraft, best armor, best whatever, And when they came to best aircraft, I think it was a Japanese Zero in 48 scale Tamiya kit that had won. And out of the blue, I just screamed, "I can't believe I won!" And everybody looked at me like I was crazy. Well, it wasn't my model, but I wanted to add some levity to it. And people were like, were you involved in judging in that category? I'm like, no, I'm dicking around with you. Sorry, jerking around with you guys. I'm trying to have some fun here.
You have spent far too much time amongst British people, Mike, because that's the kind of pure ass stunt we would pull.
Oh, I was so immature and I didn't care. And I still am. And then the other one, speaking of a disheartened loser at a national convention, the guy got second or third place in modern jet, whatever. It was an A6, if I recall. And when we went into the room after the banquet to collect our models and put them in our boxes because the show was over, I watched this guy pick up his model, walk straight over to a garbage can, and throw it in. I'm like, so again, cuckoo. If the $10 plaque is what makes your worth in this hobby, maybe you should take up knitting or something, because it's not worth that. And it was a really nice model.
Well, we'll rattle through some of the comments before we go this evening. Rob Monfils says, "Don't forget, most of us are hobbyists. I want to build lots of things to my hobby standard." Exactly, Rob. Exactly, Rob. Your workshop, your workbench, your rules. Christopher says, "My only consideration of other people in my building is a hope that they might be as excited about the story as I am." Exactly. And
you're a great storyteller, Chris.
He is, and we'll be, Chris, you will be coming back on this show in the next few weeks. You certainly will be. Just having a quick rundown some of the other comments. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we will cover my mangling the English language in a separate show. Suffice to say, if anybody's ever seen my Ghost Stories show, I stumble over so many words. Very, 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 very quickly, we're going to share a screen here because, yes, Mike, I did actually build a Tornado. Now, this is
nice.
This is the venerable Italeri Tornado GR1 from 1980. And this was one of the more recent boxes. I was asked to build this straight from the box, absolutely straight from the box. So I just messed around with some weathering ideas. I threw some stuff at it. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. It wasn't, some of the decals aren't quite as accurate as I would have liked them. Those upper wing roundels are way too small. But I was asked to build what was in the box, because this was for a retailer's promotion thing. So yeah, did it. Yeah, I've actually completed a Tornado, which, as anybody knows, it's always been like a bugbear aircraft of mine. But
Harrier for me.
Sorry,
Harrier for me.
Yeah, I'm all right with Harriers. But yeah, it was done. And like I say, there are accuracy things. I don't think the drop tanks are quite right for this, and there are Gulf War specific features that aren't in the kit, and it is what it is. But sometimes I actually
still a nice build.
Well, thank you for that. Sometimes I do actually like building kits where the remit is just build it, and it's like, right, fine. It's like, doesn't matter if a part's too thick. So long as you can make everything look as though it's fitted together and you can put a paint job on it, that's all that is required. And actually, I quite enjoy that. And if people go, I don't know how you could build models like that, it's like, yeah, well, that's just me. That's how I like it. And actually, this was a comment which was made by Scrolls Back. I knew there was a comment that I wanted to bring up. Blah 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 blah. Oh lordy, I'll find it in a second. It was very, very good. It was to do with cost and everything. And oh, for goodness sake, it was, here we go. Dave Mummery says, there are more expensive and self-destructive ways to spend your own time and money than buying and making interesting modeling kits. Exactly.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
And just to wrap up, Timothy Campbell says, I'd much prefer an exhibition type show than a contest. It frustrated me that I can't ask the models about their models because, unless it's someone in my club, I won't know who built it until the awards ceremony. This is a good one. John Patrick Huston says, I was judging at our cars show and happened to be standing next to the modeler who was awarded second, and the language he was using about the judge, me, was unrepeatable. I didn't introduce myself, needs to say. Yeah, do you know what, Patrick? John, rather, I would have. just for giggles.
Yep.
And Chris Aliung says, there is a local show here that is not a competition per se. There are only sponsored awards, and the sponsors themselves do the judging. No first, second, or third place awards. Lots of sponsors get involved, though. The guy who ran it was more of the display and talk about the models rather than the competition. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, alas, Michael, we are out of time.
Absolutely, and I know you're up against it, if you will.
No answer to that. This is it. It's like, people sometimes just mean, how can you fill an hour? We're modelers. We could fill a day. We could just be yank, 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 yank. We could do it. No problem. Mike, we will get you back very, 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 very soon, within the next couple of weeks. Because as always, it's an absolute pleasure to talk to you on the other side of the world, where it's warm and sunny.
Well, I certainly appreciate the forum and the time, and obviously all of you folks that have clicked in and have asked questions and made comments, because to me that's very important to continue the dialogue in the hobby, and certainly I do appreciate the plugs for my stuff. That's not why I come on here. I would much rather just sit and chit chat and enjoy the ride, if you will. And
but Mike, you're making awesome stuff, so we need to talk about it. So that's
well, and I appreciate that, and I certainly can't take the credit for all of it, but it is a labor of love and something that I want to give to the people in the hobby that want it.
Excellent.
So again, thank you. I hope Spencer's doing well with his project that he's working on. And I appreciate you skipping a day to allow me to come on too. So with that said, I won't hold you up. I know you've got to.
No, you're fine, Mike. Like I say, absolute pleasure. So we will be back on Sunday with another guest. I don't know who it is. I'm not even asking around. I'm just like, I'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Sadly, it won't be 1985 me, because I've sent 1995 me back to 1985. It was just getting ridiculous, honestly.
There's some very, very cool people on this list of watchers that would be great to have on.
Oh, absolutely.
If I can throw a hint out there. And not just an American guy. There's several of others on here. Maybe some guy with a last name Williams, Monfils. I don't know.
Oh,
people,
yes,
people that are very influential in the hobby.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I sent 1985 me back. Unfortunately, I sent him back to 1885. So watch the timeline and see what happens. On that note, everybody, as always, a big thank you to Mike, who will be back as ever. We'll see you all on Sunday. In the meantime, stay safe, stay out of trouble, and we'll see you all again. So
take care, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.